I think people need to have a better understanding of the journey of someone that's been through the criminal justice system, and also the failures that keep people reoffending, and also the neglect that happens to someone that is able to maneuver within the system and come out much better than they went in. If we look at the previous episode where we spoke about the educational system failing someone and leading them into the criminal justice system, who is to be blamed for that? If someone's already done their time and served what was given to them by the judge and the state, why should someone suffer for the rest of their life? We look at the impact on someone's mental health. There's no services allocated for the damage that takes place within the prison system. There's no measuring system to see the damage and the trauma caused by locking someone up in prison for decades. We need to bring a change. We've got organizations like Jemba looking at joint enterprise. We need to give the same focus to the IPP. Every one of us on earth have got one life. We're promised 72 years if we're lucky. And if you're going to steal that by giving someone an IPP, we have to look inside ourselves and ask ourselves, is this humane or inhumane? Now we're going to bring Andrew on the show to find out his journey. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Thank you. Thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm good, Thank you for having me, man.
So, the reason why the time is now, last week I was going about my business and I saw an article with your face on there. But even before that, I saw there was a change. There was something happening with you. Every time I went on the internet, you had on a different suit. So I thought, has he gone into modeling? Next thing you're on a podcast weekly. And I thought there's a massive shift going on there. You were burning up the internet. And then when I saw that Voice article, I said, you know what? I have to reach out to you because something that I believe in is having our own voice and our own platform. And sometimes we see people begging to get on social media or mainstream media with no support.
Yeah.
And this is why I called you on. So let's take us back to even before The Voice. Let's go back to you doing your politics stuff, because that's something that's never been seen in this country before. So give us the background why you set up the organization and what was your vision.
Do you know, so what you're talking about is taking the initiative party.
Yeah.
And I sat in prison, writing and speaking to people about setting up the first black-led political party in this country. As far as I know, it still is. I'm not aware that there's anything different, but I didn't see anything that was representative of me. And while I was in prison, I entertained myself through helping people. I say entertained, but I kind of passed the time by helping people. But the other thing I did is I got involved in setting up a debate around the time of Brexit. Okay. And a lot of people came and they spoke to me about the fact that they didn't know who they'd vote for in terms of moving forward, Labour, Conservative, the usual political colours. People were struggling. They felt homeless. So I thought, you know what, I need to speak to a few people. And I spoke to, one guy in prison who's never mentioned, actually. It was TTIP, Taking the Initiative Party, was actually his idea. And he gets no credit whatsoever. Just as I don't, nobody would ever know that I was the co-founder of Taking the Initiative Party.
I didn't know that until towards the end.
And this is the thing. I mean, you know what? For me, I metaphorically speaking, I want my flowers, innit?
Yeah.
So I think that everybody, when you contribute to stuff, this is one of the things that really frustrates me with the black community at times, is that when people do stuff, they don't get the credit for the things that they've done. And I've done that time and time again. And I don't do it for that reason. I do it because I believe in the change. On this occasion, I had to come away from the party, but I suppose we'll kind of get into that a bit later. For me, there was a need to organise a bit better.
Yeah.
And sadly, it didn't work out because, unfortunately, see, I'm one of these people as well. If I go into Tesco's and I have a bad experience, I don't boycott Tesco's. So I'm not going to boycott black business or black kind of efforts to change our dynamics just because I've had a bad experience. But I have had a bad experience.
Yeah.
And that experience is that, unfortunately, I think I set up the party with the wrong people.
Yeah. But then sometimes in life you do things, you never know how it's going to turn out till it turns out.
Yeah, I mean, this is, you know what, that's my whole thing, is that you start journeys with people. It doesn't mean to say you're going to finish it with them.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that's something that, I think it's a Bob Marley song. Friends you met along the way. So some friends are for now, but they might not be forever. I remember the first time I heard about the party, it was in 2021.
Right.
And I was at that time running my second by-election down in New Cross. And then I got a phone call right outside here at the studio. I just finished shooting something and someone called me and said, look, we want you to come and run for us. And I'm like, I've never heard about you before. And the energy was there, whatever you need, posters, flyers, billboards, whatever. And I'm like, oh, that's really nice. But if you'd have rung me 2 months before, I would have considered it. But at the time, I'd already committed to running for another party, which I already ran for them 2019 in Whitefoot, another by-election. And I just thought, you know what, let me stay loyal. The Labour Party came to me as well, begging me to run for them. And I said, no. If I'm not going to join the Labour Party, why am I going to join an unknown party? But it stayed with me that somebody out there has got their own party doing the same thing like what this party was doing for me. And then in 2022, the build-up to 2022, that's when we started seeing more visual and more presence online and everything else.
Yeah. And also Sasha, Sasha Johnson, you know, dear friend of mine, who I love dearly, who obviously, as we know, is still in hospital as a result of a gunshot wound suffered in 2021. You know, we're 2 years since in May coming. And yeah, I mean, it's sad because one of the things about the whole Sasha thing really is that people made assumptions that she set up the party and all that kind of stuff. And I was never going to take away those flowers because, you know what, I love Sasha dearly. She didn't. She was a very leading member.
Yeah.
And I think, you know what, as I said, around her birthday, I think that, you know, I and a number of other people let her down. I'll own my part. You know, we let her down. Yeah. Not just in terms of the fact that she was gunned down, because nobody could have prevented that, I don't think. But just in terms of what's happened since.
Yeah, I think we can't even play down her role, and I'll tell you why I say that. No. And I agree with you that her part that she played has been played down and forgotten. I have never, and I'm comfortably saying that, seen another woman in this country being able to mobilize people in such a short time as she did and end up with a household name like she did. She had a presence. There was a no-nonsense with her. She would go on mainstream TV and tell you how it is. And that was something that will always stay with us. With her, where whatever she believed in, it was, I'm ready to go for this. And she would always be on call to support people in the community. So that's something that I just want to put out there for people that might never have met her or seen her work and might just think, oh yeah, who's this person? She was an instrumental part, especially within COVID and everything else. She kept a lot of people going.
Do you know what? And you're right when you say that we can't play down our role, because one of the things about Sasha is that if it wasn't for her, nobody would have heard of Taking Initiative Party. She gave it voice when she led the Million People March through Hyde Park in 2021, 2020. She led that march because it was anti-lockdown and there was a lot of stuff going on around the time. But the other thing is, and you're right, and I'd forgotten about that until then. During COVID, she set up through her own funds, through her own efforts, a kind of a food aid, food bank type system where we were delivering. I was out with her 40 packages to people, that were vulnerable and unable to get out on a weekly basis.
And even you saying that, this is where we come back down to the community again. It's about remember me when I'm here and when I'm not here.
Yeah.
Because she was going out her way to make sure people weren't starving.
Yeah.
And when you look back now, that same love's not being paid back to her. And I think sometimes people in the community might think, how do we support? How do we get in contact if we want to show the family some support? That's something that we'll leave details in after, because I think that the family deserve every bit of support, and also her children as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, because she was out here sacrificing herself and her health for others that were, to her, more in need. So that's something we just need to put out there and not make it go amiss.
Yeah, and I don't say it to, kind of impugn anybody here, but she's got more love from the United States.
Yeah.
They've been writing, they've been sending messages, they've been praying, they've been doing a lot of stuff out there. I've spoken to people here who've made commitments and promises that are yet to be fulfilled, and I'm really disappointed, to be honest.
Well, that's how it goes most of the time. Sometimes you think that people will be there for you, and most people that's gone to jail know that. I think when you go to prison, that is the closest you get to seeing who really cares for you, because when you're in there, you got no money.
Yep.
And all you're asking for is some petrol money.
Do you know, when I landed in the bin, one of the things one of my friends said to me very early on is, he said, use this time to learn who to count on and who to count out.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did. I spent I think it was about the first 3 years just kind of working out who I could count on. And it was very obvious, because a lot of those people just weren't there.
Yeah.
They weren't there. And the people that stood out were the people that I should have been willing and ready to do anything for long before I went to prison. Most of them were family.
Yeah, it tends to wind down to family. And what I would say to you, because I've done 3 years in there, and those 3 years felt like 30 years. And the way you've just said it, like, minor, 3 years, it leads me to my next question. So how long did you do in there?
All told, 12 and a half years.
12 and a half years.
Yeah, 12 and a half years, yeah.
12. Listen.
I mean, to be fair, of the 12 and a half years, I spent about 4.5 of those in open conditions.
Okay.
And so the regime is, still prison, but the regime is slightly more relaxed. You can see the outdoors. Yeah. You can walk about. You can open your own door.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you get to go out on day release and overnight release. So it's not as oppressive as maybe B and C cat.
Yeah. So you done 8 hard and 4 pretending to be at home. I've got people that I know got their cars in the car park. So when they come out to go in the town, they're jumping in their big car. It's like they haven't even gone away. And it's funny you say that. I remember I always have a saying that I say to people that I grew up with and they've gone prison. Even if you're in there for 30, 40 years, try get to a DCAT.
Yeah.
There's always hope. Change your behavior, change your mindset, and try get to a DCAT, because there's still life. Yeah,
there is. And you know what? To be honest, I've got a controversial view about DCAT, because if I had my way, I'd do away with it.
Yeah.
I think that at times, and this is just my experience, I think that black people don't do very well in DCATs. I think that most of them are ensconced in corners of the country that are far flung from where we come from. So if you come from Brixton and you're sent to Buckinghamshire, it's not down the road.
Yeah.
And so that cost of coming out on a day release or an overnight release is either borne by you if you've got loads of money tucked away, or it's borne by your family. You're probably already struggling potentially. I know that my family didn't find it easy, and so I didn't ask for anything. I made do.
So with those time that you've done in there, what are some of the stuff that stay with you?
I made some really good friends in prison. People who are very loyal, dependable people who I'm still in touch with today.
Yeah.
I didn't think that would be the case. I think that some of the regimes are bad. They don't feed into people wanting to be a bit more positive and productive with their lives.
Yeah.
I think that it is a bit of a waste of time. Don't get me wrong, there are people that, frankly, they need to be banged up because there are things that we can't tolerate in our communities. Whatever skin color that may be, there's things that we can't tolerate. But I think that some of the regimes contribute to people who just feel, you know what, this is long. And as a consequence, they continue in that negative space.
So would you say that prison changes people, it preserves life?
Oh, wow. I think it changes people, but not always for the better.
If you don't want to change, could prison change you?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I don't think so. I think that's. I mean, it's going to sound very cliche, but it's within. It's within.
Yeah, you could get a life sentence and not learn nothing.
Yeah, 100.
The infrastructure and the courses within the prison system, how can I say, if it was that easy to win the lottery, everyone would be a millionaire.
Exactly.
Yeah, they got courses in there like ETS, PASRO.
Wow, ETS.
Yeah.
Well, they've actually changed ETS. ETS is now, guess what? TS, thinking skills.
What's the difference?
This is the thing.
They took off the enhanced.
They took off the enhanced, but somebody got paid a lot of money to come up with that.
Yeah.
So it's the thinking skills program, TSP.
Yeah.
And all this kind of stuff. But I worry because, I used to remonstrate and be a bit of a pain at times because I remonstrate with psychologists who would try and pigeonhole me, and I don't like being pigeonholed. But I remember having a conversation with a psychologist who was convinced that I was a particular way and a particular person. I just said, look, 400 years ago, you'd have been burned at the stake for doing what you do.
Yeah.
Because, psychology wasn't a thing back then. It was witchcraft in the eyes of medieval Britain.
Yeah.
But in the end, all I did was keep doing the same thing. And ultimately, I remember getting a report that just kind of said, yep, no, he's good to be released and stuff. And I was just thinking, what exactly has changed?
I think that's the sad part that the Ministry of Justice need to look at. It's not robust enough to actually support somebody with a strong mindset and willpower. And if you're already intelligent and understand systems and processes, all you're going to do is adapt to that. Within 3 years, travelled up and down the country and went to 10 prisons. And within yourself, it's impossible to do 10 prisons in 3 years. Impossible.
It's hard work, yeah.
But it happened.
Yeah.
And the way it happened was every jail you go to, do the courses and get kicked out.
You know what? I can well believe that.
Yeah, the minute the course is finished, you cause trouble, they come to you. What do you want? I want to move.
Yeah.
Okay, you could go. You go to another prison. They might have the same course in there with a different name. You do that as well.
See, I did something slightly different. I spent a lot of time watching things like The Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
And I discovered this thing called accumulated visits. And when I realised that I could be moved from where I was in the far-flung corners of the country to London and visit and see my family and friends, I thought, right, what is this thing called accumulated visits? And somebody said to me, yeah, you just put in, you get your VOs. If you're not getting visits, then you can swap it. You can go to a local jail. So I applied anyway. 6 months later, not hearing nothing. And I just thought, why am I not hearing anything? So I put in another app.
Yeah.
Nothing. So in the end, I started sending my VOs because back then you used to be able to send the physical VO.
Oh, so the paper, yeah.
So I sent the physical VO. I sent it to the Director General of the Prison Service with his name on it. I can't remember who it was at the time, but I said in a little note, I said, if you're not willing to let me see my family and my friends, then presumably you're coming to see me.
Yeah.
After doing this for about 6 weeks, the governor summoned me to the office and he said to me, firstly, I've been asked to command you to leave the Director General alone.
Yeah.
Secondly, what is it you want? And I said, I just want my accumulated visits. 2 weeks later, I was in Belmarsh. And I was quite happy with that. People thought I was mad that I went to Belmarsh for accumulated visits.
Closer.
But for me, it was closer. It was closer to home. I was happy to put up with that, the kind of short-term pain for long-term gain.
Yeah. But then short-term pain, being locked in a cell for 23 hours, is it that much pain? I think that a lot of people go to prison and they go to some prisons where they're always out. So when they go to places like Belmarsh where you might not come outside, I've seen days where they bring you the food in a little brown bag and you shower in the cell. There's no outside. No, what are you gonna do? You're gonna cry. You're in jail. You understand? And I think if prison was more like that, I think I don't know if it's changed now. They had one Coldenly.
Oh yeah,
Where you had to press the bell.
Yeah, sanitation. Yeah.
And wait to go toilet.
Yeah,
so if there's 3 people out there talking to their friend and your belly's hurting,
you're in trouble.
You're in serious trouble. And these are the things, even Portland back in the day, you had to choose a TV or a toilet. I don't want the TV, I want the toilet.
Of course you want the toilet. But you see, the thing about Coldenly as well is that I remember, because I've been to Coldenly,
Yeah.
the whole sanitation thing is unlawful. It's against the European Convention of Human Rights. I mean, I know we're out of Europe now, but it's still against the ECHR. And so why are they allowed to do that? Even barbed wire on the netting and the fencing in prisons is unlawful.
So if you've gone through those conditions, am I due some compensation?
This is a good question.
Yeah,
I don't seem to be able to get reunited with compensation. I really don't. So
I might have to look into it. I think those waiting 7 minutes to go toilet over the 6 or 8 months I was there has done me a lot of damage, and I'm due some compo.
When I got to Coldenly, the first thing I did is I got myself to E-Wing because there's no sanitation there. There's showers in the cell. I mean, the long term, the short term pain there is that you have to do a 3-man bang up to get into a single cell.
No, I'll keep the single cell. I remember first going in there and I was with my 2 co-defendants, and I've never been so annoyed and frustrated with people moving as I was with the 2 of them. Every breath they took got on my nerves.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, I know. And
and there's the smell of somebody else. You're like, how come you smell like that?
Yeah. You know,
Because people, you listen, when you're in the community, someone's body odor isn't up your nose as it is when you're in a dorm. They got them dorms in some.
Yeah.
And to live with 2 other people, and they're from different cultures to me. So although they're in jail eating the food that I'm eating, whatever was left over in them from outside was coming out in their pores.
Oh my God.
So you could smell whatever they're eating in their culture, and it's coming out in there. And I'm like, I need to come out.
No,
I would rather live alone than live with 2 people. Some people don't like their own space. I like my own space.
I love my own space.
Yeah.
You know, I love my own space. But you know what? When at Coldenly particularly, I was in with 2 others, and they were really clean.
Yeah.
Which was good because I've been in bang ups. Belmarsh is one of them. It's 3-man bang up again, and I had to suffer that for the whole month that I was there. And all I could smell was foot, fart, and breath, and it was horrible. It was horrible.
What about shoes on the bed?
Oh God, no. That's just no. Don't do that.
Yeah, they put shoes on the bed and they don't wash their cups.
I would never have anybody sit on my bed, even if I was the bottom bunk. Don't do it, my friend. Don't do it.
Yeah, no swinging when you're on the top bunk when I'm trying to sleep. What? Something that I'm going to ask you now, which when I go back into prison, it still gets to me now. The keys.
Yeah.
That is something that a lot of people that's been to jail, if not everyone, that's something stays with you. And there's certain parts of the prison where you go to where you love those keys. Because I remember just being from London, I went to prison, Swinton Hall.
Okay.
And all the London people in there was pretending they were from Wolverhampton or somewhere because they were scared. And you would wait to hear the doors cracking from up the top, jump up, wrap up yourself, whatever, just in case someone runs at you in the morning or you and someone's had an argument the night before through the windows. You wait for that first crack, unless the officer's gonna set you up. When you hear that, you're up and ready, whatever time that is. And that's something that a lot of people, when you talk to them, mentally stays with them. Just the jingling of them keys. Everywhere you go, you hearing those noises of those keys, or even the door closing. I remember in the night time, they come, boom, boom, and it sounded like a bank safe closing.
Yeah.
And you get accustomed to that. These are the things that no one gives you therapy for when you come out.
Yeah, no, it's true. And you know what? I've never really thought about it. But I remember when I was in the bang up part of my sentence, I used to bang myself up.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want them to do it.
Yeah.
You know, so when the door was kind of on the latch and the deadbolt wasn't out, you know, I just slammed my own door. You know, that was me kind of taking some power back. The keys, yeah. I mean, it does stay with you. I can kind of hear them now in the back of my mind.
No, it's come back.
Yeah.
I think one of the most messed up things that I saw in jail, I went to a prison and they gave you the key to lock yourself up.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
Open prison's the same. I mean, you get a key. It's so deep that in one of the jails that I was in, I was the induction orderly, and I used to give people that arrived their key because they were hung on the wall in my room.
Yeah.
Because, you know, on the hut, because it was a hut, it wasn't, you know, like a lock-in. And I'd allocate the rooms and just give them their key.
So it was like you're in prison, but you're not in prison.
Yeah.
It's messed up.
Yeah.
And that leads us right into the next part, which is why we're here. They talk about rehabilitation. Prisons got the infrastructure to change you. The time that the judge sentences you to is equal to the crime you've committed. Whether you're released on tag, if you're lucky, and get a small sentence, whether you're released on parole, whether you're released just straight on license, you're meant to have done your time.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your case now and what we're trying to push on, because you're not the first person that I've seen being dealt with like this and being issued these unlawful and inhumane sentences. After everything you've done in the community, all the lives you've helped, all the people you've changed their life, even helping the government by showing people how to vote, cutting down knife crime by a margin, all of this stuff that you've done. If we look at the cost for one murder, 3.4 million, all those people that you've helped and empowered. We had gang members come into meetings that would have been on the street probably selling drugs or wanting to kill people. Yeah. Changed all of their mindset. That's not a murder happening there. So if we look at monetary cost, what you've given back to this country since you've been out, it's beyond monetary value right now. We've gone over. You've paid over. But yet still, you are still here. Where's the life after?
Good question. You know what? One of the things that people constantly ask me is, why should anybody care about offenders or ex-offenders or whatever? And I say there's 10.9 billion reasons, because that's what it costs the economy in reoffending every year, because we fail to do very simple things, you know, help people. One of the things that, I think it was the Prison Reform Trust, they published some findings into what changes dynamics when people come out of prison. And the very simple answer was, you know, a job, somewhere to live, and good relationships, stable relationships. Yeah. And, you know, a lot of that stuff, people are disabused of that idea when they're in prison. When I came out, excuse me, I was determined not to go down a route, not because, you know, there was any kind of I'm rehabilitated or any of that stuff, because that's not what happened. For me, I tried to create my own risk management plan when I was in open prison, and I was accused of manipulating a psychologist because she signed up to, you know, agreeing that I should be released on the basis of what I'd written. And the parole board at the time, you know, that particular panel, they were just like, hang on a minute, are you changing your recommendation based on what he's told you?
But is that because the parole board are not used to having people that are articulate and able to explain themselves in the way that you are?
Probably. I mean, I remember I had a hearing once, and there was a retired judge on the panel. He was really aggressive, and I don't know if it was designed to kind of get me to be aggressive in some way, but I weren't falling for that. I just spoke to him as I'm speaking to you now, and I find it a shame, because you know what? 3 of the things I really wanted to achieve when I was coming to the end of my sentence was to find work, go back into education, and what was the other thing? My driving lessons, my driving test, to drive legally, because I'd driven illegally for a number of years. I didn't achieve any of those things in open prison. Yeah. Not one. In fact, I didn't pass my test until I came out of prison during the lockdown. I did the theory test, passed that, and then just after we eased out of the lockdown, I managed to do my driving test.
So all them times I saw you in the Lambo, you was illegally driving.
That was another guy.
No, I'm joking.
Education, just gone back to that now. and the work, I managed to achieve some work, but only through fighting, kind of, to find a decent job, because I didn't want to, no disrespect to anybody who does, but I didn't want to have to sign on. When I came out of prison, I didn't want to do that. I felt that, I think you give yourself some worth if you do something that you're passionate about. I'm not particularly passionate about the job I'm doing, but I think it does, it plays a role, and it creates outcomes for people.
From two things there that you just said that I'm going to touch on. For people that sign on, it's a need to basis.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be signing on if you don't need to.
Yeah.
That money is there from the taxpayer to help people that are in need.
100. Yeah, completely agree.
Nobody else. And the next thing that you just said is something that you don't even know how powerful that is. It's about, you've come out and shown that you can achieve to maintain a job and break all of the stereotypes, all of the things that people expected to happen. You've broken all of that. You're still here. And I think sometimes that goes unnoticed, but instead you're left with two letters, X.
Yeah.
And when does that EX go away? And this is what we need to know. What do you have to do to prove your worth? And when are you rehabilitated, if ever?
That is a good question. I mean, I think it's really sad. With IPP, what is really sad is that the Justice Select Committee did a whole load of work, and I gave some evidence in private to them about what my thoughts and feelings were around IPP. And unfortunately, their findings have been, they've been rejected. So there'll be no change as things currently stand to IPP. But I think that, right now there are 1,400 people still locked up on an indeterminate basis, and disproportionately, my understanding is it affects Black and Asian people more than their white counterparts, which is always the case when it comes. I mean, stop and search is no different, Section 60 and so on and so forth. But nothing changes if nothing changes.
Yeah.
So right now it's not even about me. It really isn't about me. It's a campaign to just say, look, enough is enough. Enough really is enough now. We need to just do something different. And I think if it's the question that people are concerned that people are going to claim compensation, I'm sure that most of those people are more concerned with their freedom than making a claim for compensation.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've sat on some panels for people to be released on IPP, and it's been tedious to watch. It clutches at historical stuff. You've been in prison for 17 years. They're still looking at old reports. So how could someone move forward if you're trying to incarcerate them over old stuff? That means then you don't believe in your justice system.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to here. You don't believe that you were able to rehabilitate me.
Yeah.
So why did you lock me up in the first place?
Yeah.
And this is what they need to look at. We agree there's some people that deserve to be in prison. There's some people that are dangerous. If we look now, I don't know if you got to meet him on your travels. Bronson's meant to be coming out. And people are wondering if he should be let out because he went in for a small crime, got in trouble, and we all know how easy it is to end up getting extra days and more charges in prison, fighting against the establishment. But he hasn't killed anybody. And I think that's something that people have missed. He's never murdered anyone. He's done some hostage stuff, climbing on the roof, and other stuff to keep himself occupied.
Yeah.
But I think he's more institutionalized than dangerous.
48 years, yeah. And it's kind of sad, but you know what? When I see situations like Bronson, all it does is it paints a picture for me that people who look like me and people like me are even further down the totem pole if they can treat somebody like him the way they treat him.
Yeah. So as we come to wrapping up the show now, the important question is, as a man that is well-read like yourself, you're involved within the justice system, what recommendations would you make? I know you can't give the secret ones that you gave behind the scenes, but whatever you could give us, because I'm working with a solicitor, which we're going to call in a minute, and she's going to be making recommendations for one of our clients that we're trying to help get off of IPP. But for someone that has seen the process, lived the process, seen the guidance and whatever they've put out and their justification for keeping people on this, what recommendations would you make?
Do you know, I'm already on record with one. So what I would say, Nick Hardwick used to be the chair of the parole board, and he lost his job because he tried to free the so-called black cab rapist. Well, not him directly, but the panel that was under him when he was the chief executive. For me, every IPP sentence needs to be converted into a determinate sentence. So if your IPP was 10 years, we say, right, okay, you've done however many years you've done, let's convert that and say, right, off you go. Because if you were a determinate prisoner of, say, 4 years, you'd do half of that and you'd be released anyway.
Yeah.
Most of the people that are in on IPP are kind of 10, 15 years over tariff. It's ridiculous. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. All we're doing is creating more Bronsons, potentially. You know? And
then, let's say they didn't do that. What support will there be for people coming out?
That is a good... I mean, they've spent a lot of money around housing. I think they put... I can't remember what the figure was, so I don't want to make it up. It was something like £100 million that was put aside specifically for ex-offenders coming out to accommodation that would... Almost like... do you remember when we did New Deal and stuff and employers had to take on somebody for a minimum of 3 months and then they'd get some money? I know New Deal is kind of a hot potato, but I get the impression it's the same kind of premise that they put aside some money, it's there for specifically for housing. I think that it's a hard one because, you know what, there's some people, sadly, who are going to be in IPP that haven't got any family left. You know, they've seen, and I know people that have, you know, seen one by one members of their family die in the time that they've been in custody.
They've been in prison. The housing thing is something that I specialise in. And I would like to see where that money is gone, and I'll tell you why. A lot of people are put in bail hostels. Yeah. After the bail hostel, they're lucky, and I repeat that, lucky, if they're even given a deposit to go into private rented. So when the government say they've allocated this money, who holds that money? Is it the probation service, or is it the G15 Housing Association? Where's that money gone?
Good question.
How do you access it?
It's a good question, and I feel the pain because when I got released and I was in a hostel, the only reason I moved on was because the army, because 1 million years ago I was a reservist, the army helped me out. They gave me money for accommodation. If it wasn't for the army, I don't know where I'd be now. Yeah.
And you see where we come back to. You say to the probation officer, I've been good, I've done everything and more that you've asked of me. Now my family want me out. Because the little bedroom that I used to live in no longer belongs to me. They're only being nice to get me out of jail. I need somewhere to live. Yeah. So now you run the risk of being recalled because you need to come out of the small bedroom that you left 15 years ago. That's probably now got all the bin liners and bags from downstairs in there. What do?
You know, I had a probation officer who told me that I should be a bit more frugal with the truth. She told me I should be less honest about my past in order to try and inveigle my way into accommodation. Because when I was being asked questions that were bluntly, you know, where have you been and whatever, I just said, I've been to prison. You know, I can't hide it. I can't just magically, well, I probably could, but that's old behaviour. So I can't magically, you know, create a lineage of a past that doesn't exist. You know, my past is prison. You know, it's more than a decade worth of prison addresses.
And that is something, again, that I'm going to touch on, which people seem to forget. When you then go for a job, depending on what you go to prison for, you could get the job. They then call you in for a different meeting. And the meeting is, could we have a statement explaining what you went to prison for? And 9 out of 10 times, by the time you leave, you know you ain't got that job. And it's the same thing with accommodation, same thing with university and other things. The minute you walk into university, they take your money to come there. But then when you walk in, they tell you, boy, you know what, it don't even make sense, you come in. How do we move forward for people coming out now that are not as savvy, that is not as articulate, that might not have had the education? What support could we give them?
Do you know what? there's no, in my head, there's no macro solution. But I think that one of the things that needs to change, policy advisors are all people that are book smart, who've been to university, don't know anything about prison. There needs to be more people with lived experience in some of these spaces. There really does. And until that changes, I don't think anything will really change significantly.
And in saying that, there's a big responsibility that comes with that. And this is one of the things why, and I'm going to say it here in front of the millions of people that's going to see this. I've always reached out to you in private and said to you, when I've seen you make even if it's a picture you've posted, I'm like, take that down.
Yeah, it's true.
Because you're posting pictures, it's got where you've chopped it from. I'm like, Andrew, look, you know what, forget that. I'm going to even chop the picture and send it back to you, because I felt that I had to protect you because your heart was leading you into danger.
Yeah.
And many times I'm like, please just don't. Just stop that. Because, and I remember one day you frustrated me so much, I had to say to you, you've got too much to lose.
Yeah, no, I remember.
And it was only then you started listening. I was like, this guy's gone mad. Because it's like every minute I'm telling you something, you're like, yeah, go on, I'm hearing you. Then you're then there again. And I'm like, stop letting your heart, because you want to save the world. And you think people have got the same heart as you, and they didn't. And I could see it hurt you in the end when you realize, wait a minute.
Yeah, no, it was painful. It was painful. But sometimes you do have to just rip off the sticking plaster. And you were, I've got to admit, at the head of the queue, giving me...
You have to. And the reason why I do that is this. What I do affects you. Yeah? Whether you believe it or not, what you do affects me. I've been doing this for nearly 20 years. I go and do something now. Everybody else that comes after is looked at the way that I'm looked at.
Yeah.
You make a wrong turn, you then affect me, because it's like, we let him in the door and look what he done. And this is the responsibility that other people need to learn. You're not just out here representing yourself.
Yeah.
You understand? So when you're thinking, you know what, I'm going to have 1 foot in and 1 foot out, that 1 foot in is going to jeopardize a lot of doors getting closed on a lot of people.
And it's funny because since I've got rid of some associations, I've seen that people that actually mean me more good have come back into my life.
Because you're clean now.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Even your whole aura, it's like you are a nice guy, but you was looking a bit rough around the edges. Like now people could see, oh, my man's cool. You weren't cool before, because like, I wonder if my man's on the hustle as well. But now you see, now you've taken yourself away, you're bigger than the corner that you was trying to sit in. And that's what I was trying to say to you is this. You don't need to be in that house.
Yeah.
You help build a house. You could go and build your own house by yourself. And look now, you've moved away and it's like overnight you're burning up the place. We can't have enough of you. And that's something that people need to learn again. When somebody means you no harm, listen.
Yeah.
I've got people that they're my elders, and if they phone me and say, Gwenton, no, I'm not questioning.
Yeah.
Because I know they mean me no harm. Sometimes it hurts. I'm telling you, I've worked on projects where a man's rung me and like, that's rubbish. And I want to tell him some stuff, but I know that the guy checks with me so much, he's telling me that is absolute garbage. Throw that in the bin.
And that's important. And you know what? This is one of the things I think that is we're lacking, that needs to happen a bit more. There needs to be a bit more of the elders who've come before us schooling and mentoring and stewarding the ones that are coming after.
Yeah.
There's not enough of that. There really isn't.
And then the next thing as well, when we talk about elders, it's not even about age.
No, not at all.
If a man's more experienced
Knowledge.
or gone through certain things, I remember a guy, and I keep bigging him up, Lee Jasper said to me, the bigger you get, be careful. I'm looking at him, I'm thinking, you're just a hater, bro. You don't want me to have my time. That's what I was thinking. I thought, I'm going to show you. The first time I met this guy, I was about 25. I was in a meeting in Hackney. And before he came with another guy called David Weaver.
Yeah,
they were like rock star.
Yeah.
them time they're in my ends. I'm in the meeting, everyone's like, oh, they're coming. Let's put £5 in the kitty for them because we have to pay them for turning up. I'm like, who these guys think they are? And I said, watch what I'm going to do. In the middle of the meeting, I start causing trouble with Lee. Because I thought, you're not going to remember me for the rest of your life. And the guy said to me something that, you see when the day arrived? I'll never forget, I sat there and I thought, Lee told me this day was going to come. The man said to me, keep your garden clean.
Yeah.
Make sure everybody's around you's clean. Because when they come to deep dive you, they're going in your dustbin. They're digging up in everything in your life. If you even got one stone unturned, you are gone.
Yeah.
So when you're climbing that mountain, make sure you know it's not all fun. Because it feel good when you're running and everything's happening for you. You feel good, but there's also a danger that comes with that. And that is something that other people don't pass on to others, that this is how dangerous. For me, when I saw certain things, my biggest thing was something goes wrong, you're going to be the fool guy.
Yeah.
And that was my thing. I've seen other people where I've turned a blind eye and something happens and I live with that guilt for life. Like, Gwen, you could have stopped that. And I don't say nothing. So when I was saying certain things, it's like, no, I can't. Because if that was me, other people protected me. Let me show a man, no.
Yeah. You know what? There's a few people that I respect deeply, and they all came and they said precisely the same thing, and most of them don't even know each other.
Yeah.
So I started to think, you know what, there's something in this.
Yeah.
There's something in this. So the last thing that I did with, an organisation that I built was, 6 months or more ago. I haven't done anything since, and I've just kept it moving. I walked into a bar the other day and I bumped into some people that I know, and one of them just said to me, there's a glow around you. What's going on?
Yeah.
Is it since that, and they called it out, and I just said, well, maybe it is. I don't know.
Yeah, you look much more happier. It's like you was a hostage.
Yeah.
But as I said, I just hope that you're able to live your life. And also, I'm going to say it here, and I don't care if they hear, the government would be better off if they sat down with you and worked on some of them ideas that you've got. And this is the problem we have with the government sometimes. The solution is right under their nose, but they keep doing the same thing. And I'll say to any of you out there, down at the Home Office, the Mayor's office, wherever it is, number 10, give Andrew a call. Sit down with him and come up with some solution. It's going to cut down the reoffending rate. It's going to cut down the murder rate. It's also going to empower other people out there committing crime that want an amnesty to stop committing crime, and they don't know how to. These are the strategies you need to stop pressing that red button and spending that 3.4 million or housing people in prison. And those helicopters come into the prison because people are cutting each other up in the prison. Sit down with people that have the solution and that are articulate to give it to you in the format that you need it. I've got a friend, she's legal representative, and she's working on a case jointly with myself, with someone with IPP, and she's got some guidance on how she's going to go about try and get that removed once he's out of custody. So I'm going to give her a call now and see what she's got to say.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I'm just in the studio with a friend of mine. Been out of prison for a while, doing some amazing stuff with the government and in the community, but still stuck with this label of IPP after everything that he's been out here and achieved. So I just wanted you to explain to him briefly of some of the steps that you're going to take to try and get the IPP removed from our client once he's out.
I'm a lawyer, so I will make an application to the parole board, who then, let me get the process right. You can apply to the parole board directly or through the PPCS, okay, who notify the NPS, which is probation
Yeah.
service, and then you correlate your application. So when you say that the young man he's putting together all the information, that is effectively his application, which consists of notification of the date of his first release, the decision letter, license literature, the dossier, and the report, and all of that is correlated for consideration. And it's to bear in mind that this eligibility for you applying is irrespective as to whether you've been recalled in that 10-year period. There's a 5-year mark by which you can have the supervision element of the IPP sentence. You can have that removed after 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's two sort of benchmarks. There's a 10 years after the first release, or there's a 5 years after the first release whereby you want to challenge those, the supervision.
All right. Thank you for that. Yeah, I'll speak to you later. Brother, I want to say thank you for coming on, and any last words that you want to tell the viewers out there?
No, just thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it. With Sasha, there is a GoFundMe still out there, so please, if you can, support it. Please support it if you're in a position to. With the IPP, write to your MP. If you're affected by it, write to your MP. If you're not affected by it, still write to your MP and just express your views, because there are people languishing in prison who ultimately are going to come out into society and do what? We don't know. We don't know what they're going to do, because they're being treated in a way that is not right, it's not humane, and it's unlawful. And so, that needs to change, and I'm going to keep pursuing that as long as I need to.
Thank you for being on the show. And as we see here, people, when does it stop? When do you get your life back?
570 people in prison serving an IPP sentence who are 10 years or more beyond their original tariff, 200 of which the tariff was less than 2 years. I mean, it's so staggering that even repeating it over and over again still upsets me.